Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a jealous, insane neighbor parks a huge semi-truck in front of my store to ruin my business. After I get her towed away, she called the police on me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The first one starts like this. I own a shop on my town's main street, which my guess is similar to a lot of streets bearing that name. A few restaurants, a bank, shops, nothing big and corporate really, so the store owners are a little bit of a tight-knit group. In total, there are about 30 stores on the street. All of us have windows brandishing the Little League teams we sponsor and items to entice people to come in. My shop has the unfortunate pleasure of being at the end of the street, which then turns into residential housing. The woman who owns the house hates me for things that I have zero control over. When parking on the street is too busy, people tend to go around the corner and park in front of people's homes. Legally, I might add. I have her coming into my shop every time she catches somebody parking and entering to yell at me and my potential customers. I've tried kicking her out, I've tried banning her, all it causes is her to stalk the store until I leave to yell at me on the public street. One day I was sick of her crap and told her in some very choice words that I will not repeat her to go away and never come back. That she had to leave me alone because if she made me angry enough, I was gonna turn into a person that did things one would not like happening to them. And well, it turns out that while Karen can dish out, she is totally incapable of taking it. All the things she was doing were perfectly fine, but I snapped back and suddenly I was an evil and horrible person. As such, she wanted to get revenge on me and in her own words ruin my business and cause me to go bankrupt. I did not know how she planned on doing that exactly, but my guess was she was going to do a classic Karen move. AKA a complaint on the internet, try to protest against me, etc. However, what I did not expect this woman to get a semi-truck and park it so that she was blocking my entire business from street view. Nobody could see my store unless they were walking down the sidewalk or knew it was there. This is not the kind of store people plan to go to, it relies on people seeing and thinking it is cool. For anybody curious, I sell various memorabilia, so my stock varies greatly. A lot of my customers are people coming in to see what I have after noticing my sign. Karen was stopping that and I wanted to find a way to make that truck go away. At first, I assumed it must not be legal to park a truck like that on the street. It turns out that as long as it was parked legally and she paid the meter for all spots it was occupying, there were no problems with it. I knew that something would go wrong soon because of how tight the space was. It only took 2 days before her truck couldn't fit due to another car being in one of the spots. To make her truck fit, she put it partially up on the frickin' sidewalk, thinking I would not do anything against it. I called the police and told them there was a semi-truck on a public sidewalk, creating a dangerous hazard. They came and had to get a special tow truck in order to remove something that big and get it away. This is where things get really interesting because even if I was not the one to get it towed, Karen would blame me anyway. She came into my store and before I could remind her she was banned and threatened to call the police, she started grabbing everything she could and breaking as much of my merchandise as possible. She was screaming like a banshee, saying that her truck got stolen and that she would file charges against me for Grand Theft Auto. She was literally calling the police on me, which was absolutely bizarre considering the crimes she committed. I went to physically stop her while telling my employee to call the police instead. Let's see who believes who, Karen. They came and saw the mess that she created and how crazy she was. She was arrested on the spot for trespassing since she was banned from my store and of course destruction of property. I had to create a list of everything she broke and what it was worth. For getting the money, I had to have a different kind of court and trial than she would for the actual criminal offenses. Don't think that the truck was not gonna come back and bite her in the ass though. It turns out her criminal charges were just getting started and quickly racking up. On the way to the station, she was charged with resisting arrest. Once the truck was traced to her, she had charges relating to not having the right license to drive the truck and it not being registered. Despite it not being criminal and just a fine to the town, I think this last one is the most ironic. While people trying to shop can park in the residential area, it doesn't work the other way around. You cannot leave your car in the shopping area and then go to residential, you need to actually be using the shopping area if you want to park there. Her main complaint she was having was something she was now getting in trouble for doing basically. I totaled up everything she broke and took her to court for the $12,000 of things she destroyed. Of course, she didn't want to give up without a fight on her end, trying to argue that I was just making up prices because I knew all my stuff was garbage. I came prepared with proof of what they were worth and all the authentication I needed. When she was ordered to pay me, she actually told the judge that she didn't need to do anything she didn't want to because this was America. The judge told her that yes, it was America, and if she didn't follow a court order to pay me, then in 40 days her assets could be seized and they would make her pay me. Luckily, she didn't wait and let that happen and instead paid me. I think her lawyer told her it would seem better when she went for her criminal trial, in which she had zero remorse for what she had done. She even told them that as soon as she got another truck, she would park it to block my business again. As for resisting arrest, she once again went the America route of thinking she had the right to do anything she wanted and could refuse to be arrested. Since the charges had nothing too serious, she was not going to jail. 5 years probation and I was given a restraining order for her. She could not come near my business or I could call the police. Now, I knew she was still watching my store from afar and I wanted to do something to honestly just be a jerk. I managed to find some Semitruck memorabilia that was related to a sports event giveaway. I put it front and center at the window for everybody, including Karen, to see. Immature? Yes. Worth it? Absolutely. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoyed this story of Karen getting her, sort of, I would say, comeuppance, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment, because that would help me tremendously in regards to pleasing the algorithm. Either way, the next one is a malicious compliance story. It was 2005 and the lady I had met over the internet, having visited me in Australia and me visiting her in the US and meeting her folks and all that, she had now come to be with me and we had married. But since arriving to stay, she had a lot of problems as her vocational college degree was not recognized in Australia, leaving her with difficulties getting a job. She was determined and flexible though, and did some temporary jobs, clerical receptionist kind of things, using skills she had learned while working at college as a librarian. She finally got a real job as a receptionist or clerk at a company that brokered loans, and she got on with things. One thing that was always a problem was that the sales rep/sharks would have their clients come in and they would tell the women to make coffee for them. That was not the part of their role, so my wife and co-workers were told that they were not to do that. It was up to the salesperson to make the coffee for themselves and the clients. This was part of an initiative to try to retain women in these roles, as they did not tend to stay long in what was something of an anarchic office. So my wife is working, and a salesman, they called them financial advisors, but they were the credit business version of the used car salesman class. Client comes in and she busts the guy. He comes out and says to her to make them both coffees. She tried to be discreet but said that he knew that she couldn't do that. He blew up, went to her supervisor, and she told my wife to make the coffee. Later, she had her in the office and then fired her. Yep, she was fired for trying to do as she was told, the opposite of malicious, I guess. But the karma comes in anyway. She was fired but asked to stay on until they got another person to replace her. For the next 2 months, she continued to go to work, now able and ready to refuse anything she didn't want to do, especially the coffee making. The same guy tried once, she said no, so fire me. They could not find a replacement for her. Word of their issues at that company had got around the receptionist/clerical field locally. Edit, she reminded me the agency she had got the job through refused to send anyone. It was the third person in a row dumped when the probationary period was nearly up, so the agency was not being paid their commission. Then she was offered a much better job with some real responsibility and standing and almost 30% more salary, walked in the office next day and told them she was leaving at the end of the day. No notice required, of course, and they still had not gotten a replacement and did not find one for months more, by which time they were trying to replace 2 of them. Eventually, the company let the woman supervisor go and initiated sensible rules. My wife never looked back, but we still have a chuckle 18 years later at how well getting fired worked out for her and how badly it ended for the supervisor who fired her staff for obeying the rules. And yeah guys, I have to say, I'm so happy that the woman came out on top in this situation. It is just so terrible to hear when people get treated unfairly at their workplace, so that's why malicious compliance stories can feel so satisfying. Either way, the next one is a pro-revenge story. A few years ago, I used to work overnight, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for an insurance company. I did roadside service, which consisted of people calling in about a flat tire, dead battery, or in this case, keys locked in the car. I would then call and pay a contracted company to go out and help. So around 3 a.m. my time, a woman calls in from Phoenix for help. She is locked out of her car. She started the call off very impatient and belligerent. First off, she was slurring heavily, so I was having a hard time getting her address, which I guess was my fault. I had to have her repeat the city a few times, since I genuinely couldn't understand her. She hated this and began mocking me and implying I was not from the country, which in fact I was. Apparently, my southern accent did not allude to that. Anyway, once I got the address, I asked what the address was for a reference for the locksmith. House, store, gas station, etc. She said it was a house. I looked it up in Google Maps and it was, in fact, a dive bar. Put her on hold to call the locksmith. Once I got back over, she continued to be generally displeased and angry at me personally. It would take 45 minutes for the locksmith to get there, which is actually a decent time, especially past midnight. But well, it was my fault that she had to wait for her keys. Whatever. I hung up with her and googled the local police. I then called them and reported her for potential DUI, mostly because she pissed me off. Sure enough, about 45 minutes the locksmith called back, saying that he could not perform the service. I could hear yelling in the background. Apparently the woman began fighting with the police when they arrived and was being arrested by the time the driver showed up. Her boyfriend/husband, who the driver said seemed sober, was trying to talk them out of it. So it turns out she did have a DD, but her drunken anger made her start fighting the police that showed up. Be nice to call center employees. And the next one is a story from r/am I the a-hole, and of course there's also an update, so please watch until the end to see the conclusion. Even though I, 23 female, am American, my parents are immigrants and therefore I have a different cultural upbringing than most. Well, one thing that was hammered into my head from a young age was to always bring a small gift when visiting anyone's house. It does not matter if it's family or friends or that one person you kinda know but don't really like, bringing something is a must. My boyfriend, 28 male, and I have been dating for almost 4 years now, and since we both work from home, he suggested we make dinner with his parents a weekly thing since we have not been able to see each other much for obvious reasons. I love his parents, so obviously I agreed. Every week I made sure to bring something small to show my appreciation for them cooking for us. Of course, always using my own money. A small bottle of wine, their favorite dessert, some flowers, etc. and they always thanked me for it. This has been going on for a few months and absolutely didn't notice anything out of the ordinary until yesterday when my boyfriend and I were preparing to head over. I'd gotten a cute vase of daffodils since luckily I had found some in bloom and my boyfriend's mom really loves them, but my boyfriend suddenly got really mad and asked why I kept bringing stuff over every week like his parents were a charity case. Honestly, I got super confused and asked him what the problem was and that I've always done this with everyone including his friends since we met. That it was a cultural thing, but then he got even madder and told me to stop imposing my culture on everyone, and it's weird since I'm white. At that point, I did not feel like going anywhere with him and I just gave him the flowers and went for a walk while he drove over to dinner by himself. Afterwards he came home, he still had the flowers which he gave to me and told me he was sorry, but his parents really were super annoyed with me constantly bringing stuff over. Like they cannot take care of themselves, and later on I got a text from his dad asking me to not come over for dinner anymore. Now my boyfriend is giving me the cold shoulder unless I give his parents a huge apology, but really, I don't feel like I'm in the wrong for trying to be nice to them. And yeah, Ripe Stars, this is absolutely toxic. I mean, clearly OP is not the a-hole here, she is just being super nice, and these people, I don't know what's wrong with them, honestly. Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Quick edit, I did not realize you could edit posts directly, but I'm in a hurry to convince him to let me go over to his parents' house. I did post a brief update and FAQ in my most recent comment. Comment number 1 from Reddit, not the a-hole and definitely talk to the parents. From your post and comments, it sounds like he said something to his parents, which is definitely a lie. Responding to flowers or dessert with, as if the two of them couldn't take care of themselves. Sounds strange. Something is fishy here. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, it's called a hostess gift and even some white people have manners and give them. It sucks that his family is too trashy to understand classy manners. By the way, pretty sure the dad's text is more about the spin your boyfriend put on his crap fit, not anything to do with the hostess gift. It would be interesting to ask for clarification, but not worth it. And yeah, Ripe Stars, thankfully we now have an update to the entire situation, and it reads like this. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support and replies. So I'm looking forward to going over to everyone's houses for dinner, and I'll be sure to bring all the things you said you liked. Many flower lovers out there. I'm now also apparently the daughter-in-law to a lot of hopeful parents that replied as well, so I hope I can deliver on expectations. Well, after my last update, I told my boyfriend that I was sick and tired of him dancing around the issue with his parents, and I was going to go over to their house whether he liked it or not. At this point, I think he realized that whatever he was doing had backfired, so he sat down all angry and told me that he would explain. I sat and he told me that he had done something very spur of the moment and that he had texted me from his dad's phone and then blocked the number but begged me to listen. That he just needed to get his parents off me for a while and to not leave. Apparently his parents had started hinting at him about marriage. Since my boyfriend and I talked a lot about it, I fully expected to marry him, as I said in another comment, and was honestly expecting a proposal in late spring since that is when we met. 4 years dating didn't bother me, but I was getting excited to settle down. However, my boyfriend apparently realized that he absolutely did not want to commit to anything and wanted to experiment and have fun since I was not being fun anymore. Honestly, that just made me cry since we were each other's first for everything and usually very good at communicating our needs. His grand plan was to get him mad at me, so I would beg for forgiveness and then he would only accept an open relationship as an answer. Absolutely brilliant plan, I know. He had made up his parents getting mad but did not expect me to blow off dinner completely, and it's like hitting a jackpot, his words not mine. He went over for dinner, hid the flowers and said we had gotten into a huge fight, but he was gonna fix it, but I needed space. After he confessed all this, he said he was sorry but really didn't want to miss out on new experiences when he was still young, and would I consider an open relationship but pretend ours was strained with his parents so they wouldn't get suspicious? And I laughed. I laughed his ass right out of the door and told him absolutely not and to leave me alone while I packed because I wanted to have some new experiences too. He never stopped begging me to stay, but I left to sleep at a friend's place. After calming down for a few days, I cemented the breakup and finally actually went over to his parents. My ex-boyfriend's dad never even noticed the phone missing, but still apologized, and his mom was a mess. I did and still love them and will eat dinner there without him as often as I can. I won't lie that I'm sad about 4 years down the drain, but that is life. And if that was my ex's best possible plan, then I dodged a bullet by a mile. And here, Ripe Stars, wow, I gotta say, that story took such a turn, and I'm so happy that OP basically dodged a bullet here, even though, as she said, 4 years down the drain, but it's better for her to stop now than to get married to this guy. Still, I feel so bad for what happened to her. Honestly, that boyfriend was crazy and abusive, and I would not wish that on anyone. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Rotten neighbor moves in, making demands about washer and dryer machines. A few years ago I lived in a 3-unit complex. I lived on the first floor with my roommate. We had new neighbor move into the second, who I will refer to as Andy. The day I met her, her husband knocked on my door. He told me Andy was in the basement and she wanted to talk to me. I thought, okay, that's weird, so I go to the basement and see Andy sitting on her ass with a toothbrush scrubbing our clothes dryer. She looks effing livid and starts screaming at me about how filthy the dryer was and that it was covered in oil. What she did not know was that my roommate works operating machinery for a military gun manufacturer, and that is his washer and dryer. I patiently let her finish this 10-minute rant and then say, well, first of all, that is not your dryer, it is ours and we can do whatever we want with it. Second, we don't have to let you use it if we don't want to. She apologized and I went back to my unit. However, that was not the end of it. 4 months after she continued to be a monster and possibly the worst human being I've ever met in my life, she was loud, abusive to her husband, and we can hear her screaming all the time. She would purposely stomp on the ground at 8 AM when we were trying to sleep because we worked night shifts. She would take our wet clothes out of the wash and dump them on the basement floor and then proceed to wash her own. She was just a miserable, rotten, manipulative person, and there was never a reason for it. One day she pounds on my door again. I answer it. Of course it is Andy, and she's complaining about the dryer again. Livid, screaming, name calling. I was bored, so I rolled my eyes and said, "You know what? F it. You are not to use our washer and dryer anymore. F you." I go downstairs and take her wet clothes mid-wash and throw them on the ground. I reach in the back and unplug both machines. So what is her response? Well, she calls the police, of course. 2 cops show up knocking on my door. I tell them what happened and that it is our washer and dryer. The cops were confused and asked, "Wait, did you call the police?" I said, "No, she's just a effing dumbass and might as well have called the cops on herself." So they tell Andy that she cannot use our equipment if we don't want her to, and went on their way. Luckily, we were moving out soon. Me and my roommate decided we didn't want to bring the washer and dryer with us on our move. Knowing that Andy couldn't wait to use them again, I decided to snip the plugs on the back of both machines so that she could not use them. I unscrewed the back panel and snipped those wires as well for good measure. I still think about her going downstairs with a load of laundry after we had left and trying to turn on the machines. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.